So the next one we're gonna look at is the React Big Calendar. So the React Big Calendar is going to be slightly different from what we've done earlier because it takes in more of an array of objects which contains a list of events. So when I implement it, you're going to see what I mean. So first things we need to do is to let's try to um, install the package in our code. So before we do that, let's create the new file for it. So it's going to be called React Big Calendar.js. So as usual, we generate a functional component and we name it properly as React Big Calendar. Calendar. I'm afraid of spelling calendar. A h2 header tag. We have React Big Calendar. So now let's install the package while we try to do other things. Yeah, we need to import it in our app.js. So when we go there, we can copy this down and then name this React Big Calendar and import it properly. So let's save all and see if the package has been installed. Okay, there's an error. Let's use the F flag and see if it gets installed. I don't know, some of those date picker libraries require me to use the force flag for them to get installed. I don't know why that is. So here we are using the F flag and it's about to get fully installed. And I think we're going to install another package called Moment. So I'm going to run npm install Moment because without that the dates would not be able to format properly. So we need the help of Moment. Moment is a time library on its own. So it's a date library on its own and it's going to help us in our implementation. You can see this has a weekly download of about 102,314, which is a whole lot. So this is highly used. So let me run our server npm start. So while we wait for the server to run, we need to import some things. Let's import this particular part. So we have imports React from React. Oh no. So let's import calendar, moment localizer, and then moment itself. So okay, let's open the console while that loads. So I think that's all we need to import. Then we need to set the configuration for the moment. So I can say moment dot local, and then it's gonna be in English. I think Great Britain English, something of sorts. And then we set the variable for the moment localizer. So I can just say localizer is equals to moment localizer, which we declared from the B calendar. So we call that here. So we assign our moment to it. So I think that's all. So the next thing we need to do is to create an array of objects of events. Normally this should probably come from an API, but since we are not dealing with any API here, so we can just say const my event list is equals to, so we open an array. Oh boy. Then we create an object. Then in the object, what we have is the start date of the event. So we can just say moment dot to date. which is going to be the date of the current time the calendar is opened, and then the end date is going to also be, but it's going to be increased by one at, you see what I mean when we run it in the, we increase by something like an extra day. So 1 day, then open in parenthesis there. So lastly, the title of the event. So I'll just say play Nintendo Switch. Okay, I think that's all. So let me check the page. Okay, no errors here. Let me save that. And then the final thing is to call our calendar and assign the props to it. So that will be the last thing we need to do. So let me just call the calendar. So what props? We need to add the localizer prop and the event prop. So the localizer equals to localizer, and then the second prop is the events prop, and that will be my event list. So let's save, and I believe the calendar should load on our browser. Oh, this is not what you expect, I guess, but we need to import the CSS for um for this to show properly. So in the documentation, I think we can get that from where can we get that from? It's not here. Yeah, but I was able to locate it somewhere. Can't remember. Okay, yes. So this is it. So this is what we need to import. So we're gonna import this particular CSS for the styling. So what we can just do is import import react b calendar slash lib slash css react b calendar dot css. So let's save and see how it looks like. It should make some sense now. So let's refresh the page. Yes, looks perfect. Looks much more decent. So as we can see, let's check the agenda list. See, play Nintendo Switch starts on Friday, March 5, which is today's date, and then it ends on Saturday, March 6th. Like it ends 1 day extra. So when we go to today, when we go back, we see the current date. We go to next, and then next again. There are no events for that particular date. So there are various ways you can configure this. Just try to go through the documentation, and you see what I mean. So that's it for this particular um date picker. So let's move on to the next one. So the next one we're going to be looking at is the react date time. I'm sure you have something similar before, which is the react date time picker. There are two different packages. So let's click on the react date time. So this one has a weekly download of about 181. That's a lot. So let me copy that. Uh, so quickly, let's go back to the package.json, and then remove the Rabi calendar. I don't know. They might clash one way or the other. So then I can install the npm package. So let's quickly create a new file called react datetime. So we have react dash date time.js, generate a functional component quickly, and then um, we name these functional components properly. So react date time. So let's give it an h2 header of react date time. Okay, let's quickly check the documentation to see if there's anything we need to install, anything extra. I don't think we need to. Yeah, I think we need to bring in some css. So let me copy the css. Okay, we bring in the css, and then we bring in the date picker component itself, which is import date time from react date time. I mean, if we don't import that, how do we expect this to work? Impossible. So let's quickly export this and then import this into the app.js. So react date time, call the react date time, and then paste the components in our app.js. Let's save everything. Meanwhile, let's check our okay. Once again, this doesn't work and it requires the F flag. I don't know once again why this happens, but we need to forcefully install it for it to work, which I don't think is a good practice. But this is not a production environment, so we can always figure that out later. But for now, I just want us to show how this works. So let's just start the server and then see how our page loads and to see if there are no errors. So as usual in documentation, we have lots of props. One of the props we'll be looking at is the value. The As you can see from previous examples, most of the props we look at are the value and the unchanged props. Those are the two props we look at regularly. But for your own projects, you might need to look at other ones like the open, like the local, like the UTC. So, but for us, we mostly look at this because all I want to do is to log the results into the console. The React datetime has loaded on the page. So, um, let's see. What we need to do is let's call the date time itself and see if the date picker loads on the page. Okay, let's save and then okay, it loads. So as you can see, it's empty. Um, what I want to do is I don't want this to be an input, at least to do something different. So I'm gonna call a prop called input and set it to false. So input equals to false. So let's see how that looks in the browser. Yeah. So our date loads directly on the page without the input field. So that's cool. Now let's try to get the values and load the values on the um console. So to do that, let's create a new variable called set time. So say let's set time. So let's set time, set date time. Let's just call it let's set date time is equals to, then we create an arrow anonymous arrow function, and let's create a value called const date value. That is the value of our date. This takes in an argument called dates. So let's just say date dot to date, which is the current date, and then let's log that to the console. So console dot log date value, and then let's assign the prop to, okay, first the value is going to be the set date time, and also the unchanged prop, which is the last prop while calling in this component, is also going to be set date time. Okay, I think we're good to go. Let's refresh that, and then in the console let's click on 24th of March. So we get the value for 24th of March. Let's change the year, the month to, or the year rather, to maybe 2022. Let's select May, and then May 8th. So we got Sunday, May 8th, 2022. So that's it for the React date time. The documentation is still explanatory. You have some code sample there, so you can always look at it and then implement whatever functions you want in your project so it works properly, it is well maintained. So make sure to look at it. So we can move on to the next date picker library now. So the next date picker we're looking at is the React date picker. So when you search for React date picker, you get a link to the npm package. So from here we can see how this can be implemented. As we can see, this is the npm install commands to install the project in our install the library in our project. So I would like to open the website for this date picker. We do that by, let's right click and open the documentation in a new tab. So as we can see, we have various samples of the date picker. So I already installed this um, in my project. So what I would do next is to create a new file called react-datepicker. So .js. So we create, as expected, a functional component in the project, and then name it appropriately. So let's give it an header, react the picker, and let's import this or export this to the app.js so we can display it on the page. React the picker. So it's been imported there. So let's go back to the npm and let's import. Okay, um the okay, yeah, I think I see this. Let's import this. So this is going to be an input. So I want this to be an input. So to do that, let me just add inputs in front of it. So react date picker inputs from react date picker forward slash date picker input. So that's going to make it an input field. And then we call it in our return. So let's save and then start our server. So on the page you can see this has been loaded to the page. So when I click on this input, it brings out a date input. So what I want to do is log the date values to the console. So I'm going to create a function. So the function is going to be const on the picker input. So it takes in an arrow function. So let's log that to the console. Okay, I think that's all. Then what we need to do next is just to pass in the props, and we are all done with this. So the variable here, which is on the picker inputs, let's paste it here. Um, okay. The prop is not called on the picker input. The prop is called on day change. On day change. Let's save and see. Okay. Let me refresh the page. So when I click on the input field, it brings down a calendar. Then when I click on the calendar, I get the value of the date. So another thing we can do is we can have a placeholder. There's already a placeholder year, months, and day. So yeah, I think that's it for this tutorial for this particular date picker. Let's move to the next one. So up next is the material UI picker. So on the npm page, first thing we need to do is to copy the installation command in our project and then install it. um, let's create the files, that we'll need on our page, on our in our VS Code rather. So on the date folder, I'm gonna create a new file called material UI pickers. .js. It's an error somewhere. So we are trying to generate a functional component. So let's rename it as material UI pickers. Okay, before we export it, let's give it an header of material UI. Material UI pickers. Then let's copy that and paste it in our app.js. Okay. From /date/material UI pickers. Okay, I think that's all. Let's save and check our installation. Okay, we need to force the installation. So -f. So going back to the file, we need to go back to the documentation and continue working with what we have. So I'm going to import dates fns utils. Let's copy that and paste that here. So I'm going to be using useStates too, so why not import it as of now. Then the next thing we need to import is the material UI providers. Let me copy that, paste it in the project. Alongside this, we need the date picker. So I'll have date picker as well as time picker, and finally date time picker. So we'll be having three different date pickers on the page. Date time picker. Okay, I think that's good enough. Let's check the installation. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to make use of the use states. So for the use states, we're going to have a variable and a function. So the first one is going to be, oh, it's in caps lock. The first one is going to be the selected date to get the value of the date, and the second is going to be undo date change. So use dates, and it's going to take a new date. Okay, now let's create a function const date change value and assign an arrow function to it with an argument of date. So date. So let's call our undo date change. So this is going to update the state of the dates as it's changed when the user clicks on the date picker, and then the date value is the value inside the date arguments that we're going to log into the console. So console.log date value. I think that's all we need to do. Let me start the server. So the next thing I would want us to do is to set up the material UI picker component. So to do that, I'm gonna open a bracket and I'm gonna close it. I think the material UI provider has an opening and a closing tag, so it's gonna be this way. So inside the opening tag, we're gonna have the date picker. We're gonna have the time picker as well as the date time picker. Okay. So we need to pass in the utils as date fns utils. So let's save that. So we have three inputs on the page: date picker, time picker, and then the date time picker. Excellent. So let's pass in the props. We already created the variable. So the first one is the date picker. So for the date picker, it's gonna take in a variant of static. And then the next prop is gonna take is the value, which is going to be selected dates. Selected date is coming from our use state. And then the last prop is gonna take is the unchange prop to update the value of the selected date. So date change value. Let's save that and see that in action. So it's static. So let's see if it logs the values to the console. So as you can see, it does that. Let's do the same for the time and the time picker and the date time picker. So for the time picker, quickly, let's assign the value prop, which is gonna be selected dates, and also the unchanged prop, which is gonna be date change value. Same thing applies to the date time picker. So the value and unchanged. Okay, let's save that. I think that's all we need to do. Let me refresh the page manually and clear the console. So when I select maybe 17th March, it gets updated here because they are using the same unchanged value prop. And when I change it here, so it's gonna change over in the date picker. Okay, let me select May 8th. Okay, as you can see, it's updating over at the calendar year itself. So, and we are able to log it to the console. That's it for the material dates, material UI pickers. It has a very rich documentation. You can check it out in their website on the npm page. So let's move on to the final date picker we'll be looking at. So the last date picker we'll be looking at number one is the React date picker. This is arguably the most installed date picker in React. It has over 800,000 weekly downloads. So let's quickly install that. So npm install react date picker, and from the documentation you can see probably the reason why it's installed. I think that's a very rich documentation and you are able to customize it the way you want. So straight in VS Code, let's create a new file for it. So it's gonna be called react dash date what date picker. And I just forgot, my brain just froze there. So let's generate a functional component which will be calling react date picker. So this is gonna be called react date picker. So let's export it to the app.js. Call it there, and then from date forward slash react date picker, Let's check our terminal. Okay, it has been installed. Let me run npm start. So while waiting for that, we can quickly create an header tag called react-datepicker. Okay, let me save that. So what we need to do is to let's import from the documentation the needed import statements. So import date picker from react date picker. I think we need a css, the css also, so let me copy them together. In fact, let me copy the three since we might make use of use states also. So quickly let's do that. Paste it in our projects, and then let's see if it runs on the page. Okay, react date picker shows. Excellent. Now I'll open the terminal or the console, and then back to our projects. Let me see, let's call the date picker and see if our date shows on the browser. Okay, all right, let me save that and let's check again. Yeah, we have our date input, so let's pass in the necessary props to make this to break this down further. So to pass in the necessary props, I'm gonna create I'm gonna make use of the react hook, and we'll create a variable called start date and set start date. Set, you can always call this whatever you want. I for the sake of this project, I'm giving it any name that comes to my mind, so you are always free to give it your own name. So this is gonna be new dates. So once the use state hook is being created, we need to create a variable that takes in an anonymous function. So we're gonna get date value, which is going to be an arrow function, an anonymous arrow function. So we're gonna call the set start date function we declared in the hook, and then passing the date. This helps us to update the value of the date as it's changed. Whoa. So call the dates in the console. So let's pass in the necessary props here. So we will be passing two props. The first one is the selected prop, which takes in the start date equals to start date start date, and the last prop we'll be calling is the unchanged, the expected prop. So it's gonna be get date value. So I think that should be all we need to do. So as we can see, we get the value of the current date thanks to the react hook value, which is the new date, which gives us the current date that we currently are at. So when I click on the input fields, then I'm able to change the date and get the values in the console. So let me select once again May 8th. May 8th. Yeah. So we get that in the console. If you're wondering why I'm constantly selecting May 8th, that's the day of my birthday. So it's always cool to be biased, and then I'm free to choose my birthday dates as much as I want. So that's it for this project. I believe I'm able to break down most of these date pickers, and you can probably look at it yourself also and customize it in whatever project you are working on. I believe um, I've been able to break it down at least to the bare bones, the basics. So feel free to go to the comment section, and then and write down any challenges probably you have while trying to install or set up any of this project, and I'll be sure to reply. So please give me a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as I create more videos. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay blessed. Bye.